So let's get started. This is the assignment, sorry, the tutorial 7. Actually, maybe we should just look at what we've got in our home page first, because there's a couple of things there. We'll look at tutorial 7. The assignment 7, now what I've done with the assignment 7, or what I'm thinking to do with the assignment 7, no other class is doing the assignment 7, so you don't have to do it. But if somebody really wanted to do it, you know, maybe I could give some extra credit or something, but only if you did everything else, right? So if you haven't handed in all your assignments or your labs, don't bother doing it. Just work on them. You know what I'm saying? But if you finished everything else and you think, oh man, I could get some extra credit, well, yeah, then let's do that. Does that sound fair? That's the way I'll treat that one. So assignment 7, if you did want to do it, you could do it as a group. I think 3 to 4 people, or you could do it individual. So, but you don't have to do it. You can get 100% in this course without doing assignment 7. Does that make sense? So you don't have to do it. It's there, but you don't have to do it. All right. So I got some other news there. We're going to have a quiz, and that'll be on the last day of this week. Is that Wednesday? So we'll do it then. And you can see it's going to have 10 questions, and they're all multi-choice. And they're divided into 2 different kinds of questions. It'll be a bunch of questions on loops, 5 questions on loops. And so I've written down the kind of stuff that you'll need to know in order to answer those questions. They're just multi-choice, but you know, it'll be like, okay, so this variable has this value, and then while this happens, and then this variable changes, and this variable changes, and then print at the end what happened to it. It'll be that type of thing. So can you trace a variable through a loop? That kind of thing. All right. And you have similar questions about functions, but there's also some theory questions in there about loops and functions, you know, to ask you what about the indentation? How important is that? What about the colon? You know, those types of things. So you should go back and look and make sure you understand that so that you can answer the questions on functions. Oh yes. The other thing, as it mentions there will be at least 1 or 2 questions on math functions and string functions. So you know your math functions, and that you have to import the math library and some of the math functions that are there. The string functions, you know, like len, and also is upper, all those. Have a look at those. So make sure you're ready to do that. Am I recording this? Yes, I am. So let's have a look at today's exercise. Now, today's exercise, I'm not going to work through it with you because it was kind of big. And so because it was kind of big, when I looked at it, I thought, oh, that'll take more than half an hour to do. I don't feel like standing up here in front of you coding for more than half an hour. So I actually did it beforehand. So I've got it here. I'll show it to you, but more in explaining rather than line by line. So what is happening in this is you have to, how the program, well, let's look at the program run. Program run is here. You ask the person their name, and then how many courses they're going to do. So then this sets up a loop. It's going to be a counted loop, which is going to be as many as ever you say you take there, right? And then you ask them for a course code, and the course code, we've got some error trapping in it, and the error trapping just to make sure that we get the right kind of course code. So the course code, there's some rules there, and so we put the rules in a while statement is what I would do, or you can put them in an if statement. So you're going to have some rules about the course. The course must be 8 characters long. The first 4 characters must be letters of the alphabet. So we'd say alpha. And the last 4 characters have to be numbers, numeric. And so it's a string, but we can test a string to see if it's numeric or it's alpha. And so we do that. The other thing is we can test we're going to test exactly half the string, aren't we? We're going to take the first 4 characters and we're going to see if they're alpha. So how are we going to get the first 4 characters? We use a substring. And we've done that before too. Do you remember the square brackets and the substring with the colon? We'll have a look at that. All right. So then we give a number, and based on the number, it's going to give us a grade, which is a letter grade, A through F, and it's going to give us a number of stars. And so to do that, well, I think you need a if statement. If elif, right? So if you do that, that'll work. I actually, when I looked at that, I thought the number of stars is related to the number of the grade. So like 3 is 3 stars, and 4 is 4 stars, and 1 is 1 star, and 0 is 0 stars. I thought, well, I don't know. And actually, just today, I looked at the tutorial answer that was provided by one of the other teachers, and I realized that my answer is not the same. What they did is they just use the if-elif, and how I would do it is I'd say, okay, well, based on the number, we'll print the number of stars. So I have a loop which prints. I like my way better, but you have a look, you'll see it. And so there's different ways of doing everything. And I think the idea is the reason why I'm mentioning that is the idea is that there's more than one way to get to the solution. And so that's why I'm often very skeptical when I see everybody hands in the same solution. Because when I do a program, 2 different days, I'm going to give you a different program, depending on what I'm thinking, what I had for breakfast. You know what I mean? You know, what's in your head at that moment. That's, it's creative process, and it's just like you're drawing paintings or writing. It's going to be different every time. And so it's kind of strange if it's all the same. There's a lot of error testing that we've got in there. I think the best thing is probably just let's run the program and see. Now what I've done is I did go ahead and I wrote this program, and we can go through it and see how it works, but I'll run it first and then we'll go through it. Now, this is the way I did it. And as I said, one of the other teachers put a solution up, and they didn't have as many functions. I did a lot of functions. And so because I did a lot of functions, I've got a very small main program. I like it that way. I think it's easier to understand what's going on. But let's run it and see. So we put the person's name, and then it's going to ask you how many courses you're going to take. So let's say we do 4 courses. You put a course number in. Now, if you put a course number that's got the wrong number of things in it, it should give you an error. So the only way it will move on is if you put a correct code, like INFS. Now this is a correct one, so then it'll ask you for the grade. Then you put a grade in, and it converts that grade, that number, to a grade. And so that requires this if-elif structure to do that. And it prints out a number of stars, which is based on your GPA of that, right? So an A is going to give you 4 stars. A B is going to give you 3, that type of thing. All right. So the next code. So let's say we got a smaller number there. So this should be a different grade. So 67 would be a different grade. And we see that according to our program, 67 is going to be a grade of D plus. And so we only get 1 star instead of 4. Does that make sense? Another one. Course code. And what is our grade for that? And so you see how that's working. We can look at our if then else structure. Actually, if you looked here, you'd see how that is. So when we put in 98, that gives us an A and grade point of 4. So that's why we got 4 stars. When we put 87, you get B plus. 3.5 is the grade point, but it's only 3 stars. Does that make sense? And the last one, let's say, I don't know, middle number, 78. And that's a C plus. And then what it does is it calculates the GPA. Now, we have these 2 numbers. We have this number, which is called GP, which is your grade point. You get a grade point for every course. Now, if we're going to do this exactly right, we would have to also get the number of credits, because the way grade points work is you take the grade that they got and you multiply it by the number of credits, and that's your grade point. And then you get your average by all of those added up and then divided by the number of courses or the number of credits. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to take the grade point, which we sort of made up this way, and we're going to average it. So this is a grade point of 4. This is a grade point of 1.5, though it only shows 1 star, right? Because we can't show a half a star. And B plus is a grade point of 3.5. And then C plus is a grade point of Is it 2.5? Yes. So all of those added up together, 4 plus, well, anyways, when we divide them by 4, we get this number 2.875. And then that shows 2 stars because it's not as big as 3, right? If it was 3, it'd give you 3 stars. All right, so you ready to look at a program, how to do this? We'll look at 2 programs. We'll look at how I did it. We'll look at how somebody else did it. And then you can sort of decide how you're going to do it. So this is my output. So you can see that's how it worked. Well, how would we do the input? Well, first thing I looked at is, well, you know what? How are we going to print those stars? How are we going to print those stars at the end, right? Stars, stars. And so I thought, well, what makes sense to me is what if we just had a little function, simple function, and there it is, where you input a number, which will be a number 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And then we have a while loop where we're going to count up to that number and we're going to print a star for each time. And that's all it is. So that's why we got a while loop here. We're going to start with 0 as long as we're less than the number. So, but what about if it's 3.5? You can't print 3.5. So I convert the number to an integer first, which removes the 0.5 bit. Okay. And so I hope you saw this before, the end equals thing. That means that when we print, after printing this star, will remain on the same line. So the next thing we print will be beside it instead of on the next line. That's what we're doing then. The end equals this thing means that we don't go to a new line. So don't go to a new, that's all that means. Don't go to a new line. And so that's how we print the stars. I did that as a function because we do this in 2 different places. If you look at this, we do it where? We do it every time we get a grade, we do it. And then at the end, we do it for the GPA. So I thought, well, we could do a function to do that. And so there's the function. You put a number in and you get printed a number of stars depending on the number. Now, when you look at, I'll show you after this, I'll show you the other teachers, how they did it. They did it with if elif. And so, you know, if the number is 2, 2. Yeah, that's fine. And as I said, so it just depends. What did they have for breakfast this morning? You know what I mean? Neither of us are right or wrong. We just do it different ways. That's how I would do it. At the end, I have to print a new line because otherwise we'd have something printed beside our stars. So we want to have our stars and then have a new line after that. All right, so that's the first thing. Now I'm going to show you each of these functions as I go. The next function that I would do is you have a course number, and the course number has to have the first 4 letters. The first 4 characters has to be letters of the alphabet. The last 4 characters has to be numbers. And so how are you going to do that? Well, this is how you do that. The end, by the way, is because this is going to be inside a loop. And so we're going to take the first course number, the second course number, the third course number, that type of thing, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to enter a course number. And then we're going to do these 3 tests on the course number. And all 3 of those, if any one of those is not true, then this will be a not. If any one of these is not true, then we're going to give them an error. So they all have to be true. So the first one is that the course number has to be 8 characters long. So that's the first test. Everybody understand that? This says that the course number must be 8 characters long. Got it? Then the next one is, oh, well, this was a little bit trickier. What we're saying here is the first 4 characters have to be letters of the alphabet. That's how we do that. So this basically says from the start of the string CNUM up to, but not including, position 4. So that would be position 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's the first 4 characters, right? 0, 1, 2, and 3. But not including position 4. We're going to check to see if they're alpha, that they're letters of the alphabet, that they're not numbers or special characters or anything else. They must be alpha. So these must be alpha. The first 4 characters, all 4 of them must be alpha. Make sense? And then the next one, well, look at that. It's a little bit different, isn't it? It says, oh, start at position 4. Start at position 4. So in other words, ignore the first 4 characters, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Start at the 5th one, which is 4, and go to the end of the string. And that's a new string. And that must all be numbers. So it can't be letters, must be numbers. So by doing that and putting ands in between them, the ands mean that all of this becomes like one big Boolean statement, right? It must all be true. It's not that just one of these things are true or none of them are true. They must all be true. And if any of them are not true, then this will be a not. And then we will have to say, all right, well, there's an error. Put it in again. And then we return the value. So everybody understand that function. What this function does is the user puts in a number for the course number, and this checks to make sure it's a good course number. And if it is, then it returns it. If not, you're stuck in that one. That makes sense? All right, now here's a big one, right? It looks big, but it's big, but it's simple. So what happens is we have parameters, which are the course number. We only needed the course number so we could print it. Yeah, so we put that in there. And then we have the, would you call it grade? It's the score, you know, out of 100. Yes, Abdullah.
What is the name for?
The what?
The name for
Okay, that's in the main program. In the main program, I ask them for their name and then they print it. Easy, okay? So yeah, okay, so in this function, we ask them to, they have to input the course number and the grade, and then it's going to check it. Now, the first thing, hopefully this while looks familiar to you. The idea of the while here is it's an error trap. If they put a number which is less than 0 or more than 100, then that's not allowed. And so basically we're saying you can't put a number that's less than 100, less than 0 or more than 100. If you do, it's not allowed. And so you have to enter the number again. Does that make sense? So that's all that is. That's an error trap. Then, so by the time we get to this point here, see where my cursor is there? Must be we have a number between 0 and 100, right? Because if we don't have a number between 0 and 100, we'll be stuck in this loop and we have to keep entering a new number until we get a number between 0 and 100. So now we've got a number between 0 and 100. We have to decide, well, what's the grade? And so we do it this way. Now, the way the if-elif works, I hope you remember this, only one of these things can be true. One and only one, not less than one, okay, not 0 of them, and not 3 of them. One will be true. That's the way if-elif else works. One is true. So which one will it be? If it's this one, the fact that only one of them is true means that we will ignore all the other elifs and the else. Is that right? But if it's not true, then we go to the next elif. And if that's true, then we ignore all the ones going down. So basically you work your way down like a waterfall until you find the one that's true and then you exit. And if you got your way all the way down to the else and none of them were true, then the else is it. Else is the false statement, right? So what is going to be, right? If the grade is more than 90, then you got an A. Well, if the grade is not more than 90, well, then we go and check. Is the grade more than 85? Well, if it is, you got a B plus. Well, if it's not more than 85, then we check. Is it more than 80? Then you got a B. See how that works, right? Eventually, we got down to, is it more than 60? Then you got a D. If it's not more than 60, well, then you got an F. Make sense? All right. So out of this, do you see here? I call that stars program, that stars module. Why? Because depending on what the grade is, depending on what that grade is, that's how many stars we're going to print. And then we return the grade. Why? Okay, so let's look at the program now. Here's the main. We ask them for their name. We get their name. Then we go and we call this function called GPA. That's this little function here. What this function is going to do, GPA means the average of the GPs. The A on the end means average. So average, look at that. You've done this 100 times. You know this. I know you know this, right? How do we do an average? Total is 0. Count is 0. Read, add to the total. Add to the count inside the loop until we've got as many as we had. So we see this, right? Count is 0. Total is 0. How many numbers you got? How many courses you're going to do? That's how many times we're going to do the loop. However many courses you've got. So what are we going to do? We're going to take your course number and we're your course grade, and we're going to add it to our total. But we have to add the grade to our total, and the grade comes out of this function here, right? We put the number in, and we get the grade out, which is going to be, we get the GP out, which is going to be a number between 0 and 4. The number between 0 and 4, right? One of these numbers, 4, you see the biggest grade is 4, and the smallest is 0. So one of these numbers is going to come out of that. They're all going to be added to the total. When we finish, the total is going to be divided by the count, and that's going to be our average for our GPA, because GPA is an average. Anyways, I hope that makes sense. Anybody like me to explain any of this more? Okay, so here we get the good course number. Once we've got the good course number, then we calculate the letter grade, and from that we make it work. Do you want me to run this again? All right. Well, this is being recorded, so this will all be on YouTube, and you'll be able to see that program. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to now let's look at the way that the other people did it. So they've got a solution here. I thought I had a solution. Oh, that's why I'm in the wrong. That's, no wonder I couldn't find it. All right. So here's a solution, which is a compressed file. I'll download that. And can I get, yeah, I suppose I can get it from there. Or yeah, okay, yeah, I can extract it. And oh. So here's another solution. This is done by somebody else. And have a look at this. It's nice, but it's different than I did it. Okay, and you could choose either of these in your solution, or a third way. I don't care. Just make it work, right? So how did they do it? They got a nice way of doing it. So let's look at their functions. They got only 3 functions. And what does the first function do? Well, you enter a grade. The grade comes in as a parameter, and what goes out is a letter, and the letter is going to be one of these. So the only thing that is a number goes in and a grade comes out. Now when I did it, remember, my function printed the grade and outputted the number. But this one is going to output the grade. And then we got another one to get the number, letter to grade. So we put in the grade and it outputs the number. So basically, I had a function that did both of these two things, and they've got a different function for each of them. So first they get the grade, then from that they get a number, yeah, and then they get the stars. Remember, I did my stars by a while loop. Look at how they've done it. They've done it with the if-elif. That's kind of cool. All right. So they're just going to return these strings, and then they'll print the string. They'll print the string. All right. Now, anyways, here it kind of loses me a bit, because here's the main, right? So their main is a lot more complicated than my main, because I had a couple more functions, right? But let's have a look at it. What you'll see is, doesn't this look familiar? I had a function to do this, to check to see if it was numeric. And I guess they also have to, yeah, so there they are, same thing. They're checking to see what is, is it alpha? Is it numeric? So they did that. I think mine was a bit more sleek. What do you think? I'm not trying to make you look at it and say, oh, mine's better or whatever. But yeah. And look, I told you the calculation of the average. Do you see that they're doing the same thing here? They got their total and their count 0. And then in this is where we're calculating the average. We're adding it to, where are we adding it? We're adding it to the grade there, and we're adding the count. Then at the end, we calculate the average. There we go. So yeah. Yeah, this is quite nice. And maybe it's easier, but I'm sure it works also. Let's run it and see. I have to admit, this is the first time I run their program. I think it works. All right, so Let's just do 2. Works the same, doesn't it? Look, what I see when I look out here is I see people that are really, really tired. And I'm sorry about that. So I think I'm going to stop for a bit because folks are a bit tired. Maybe you have some questions. All right, so this is all on a video. I've recorded all of that. Who have I got there? That's Raneem. Hi, Raneem. So I'm going to pause it quick. Okay, so this is my solution for tutorial 7. So you can see the functions there, the one to get the stars, the one to get the good number for the course number, the letter grade, which does 2 things. It's going to print the letter grade, A, B, C, whatever, and it's going to return the grade point. So that's why it's got a return of the grade point. So, and it prints the stars. So you got a function calling another function, which is not unusual. And then we got the function that calculates the average of the GPs. And so that's kind of that. So at the start of the program, we ask them their name. Then we calculate this, which is going to call those other 2 functions. You see it calling those other 2 functions, getting the good course number, getting the letter grade, and then calculating the average. So that's how I would do it. So that's all. I am recording this. So this is going to be on, I'll be posting this on D2L in a minute. So the other way that they did it was this way. This one. And so it's a little, their functions here are really nice functions. 3 elifs functions, so 1 to get the right letter, 1 to get the right number, and 1 to get the right number of stars. And then everything happened in the main. So I like to not make the main that big. So that's why mine was different. I had a few more functions in it so that the main was smaller. So yeah. So this one here, we're getting the numeric number. Oh, hold on. I actually didn't do that. That's all right. So that's that. Anyways, let's end there. So is that all right if I finish now?